Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by again. Look, tonight I just want to give my quick take of the Democratic primary debate that you just saw happen and give my basic overview of the narratives, who did well, who didn't, what's at stake going forward, and we're just going to jump right into it. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they both had good nights. They are the two frontrunners in this half of the debate. Harris and Biden will come up tomorrow night. But they went in as frontrunners and they stayed frontrunners, despite heavy attacks, not only from their opponents, but even from the narrative that CNN tried to craft, where seemingly every question was about, why does Bernie's plan suck? Like, why is Bernie's plan going to elect Trump? Don't you think that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are being unreasonable? And on and on and on. And the attacks on them saying their plan will only serve to elect Trump. Their plans are fairy tales. Their plans are nothing but dreams. And that what we need is good, hard-nosed pocketbook policy. And to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's credit, they rejected that notion. They not only had excellent command about how their policies are practical and achievable and help regular Americans, but they turned this narrative about pragmatism on its head. When they said that Democrats don't win when they run as, technocratic centrists who aren't interested in actually changing anything. They win when they're bold progressives that inspire people to go out and vote and to vote for them and to get the people that rarely vote out to the polls because they're running on something they can believe in, like Medicare for all, or like a child care program, or like the cancellation of student debt, or real meaningful increases of taxation on the rich. And Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren put it great. Liz Warren especially, when she went and demolished Delaney, when she basically said, look, there are people on this stage who are running for president and their whole narrative is that we can't really do anything better. And it was just a great encapsulation of the intellectual bankruptcy of the neoliberal center of the Democratic Party. It is absurd that we're even tolerating their vision. Warren makes a great point that her and Bernie Sanders, they are running to make real structural change to American society in social and political and economic terms, and that's why they're running for president. This isn't a vanity project. This isn't a goal to raise a lot of money for the big banks and to, build, a legacy for yourself so that you'll be seen as a cool person 50 years from now. No, this is about real, down-to-earth, getting stuff done for regular people. And on that stage, it seems that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were the ones most dedicated to that effort. Another factor we have to talk about, and this is sort of tied into the right-of-center narrative that was being crafted by CNN, the debate moderators and what have you, the questions being asked, how they were being asked, was, who got speaking time. And I have to say that John Delaney got an exorbitant amount of time relative to, one, how he's polling, and two, how interesting he is. And on neither of those fronts is he doing well. John Delaney and John Hickenlooper, they basically, have no real presence in the debate other than to be a sort of Biden stand-in. Biden wasn't there tonight. He is polling in first place in most polls. And I think they wanted to provide the illusion that there was a kind of right-wing Democrat on the stage willing to challenge Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and that person was, had an actual chance. And so John Delaney got a ridiculous amount of time. Questions were often fired to him. He was able to interject himself a lot. And if you watch that debate with no prior context, and you had a general thought that, okay, they're going to go to the biggest figures the most, then you would think that this was a three-way tie between Sanders, Warren, and Delaney. And of course, in no way is that the case. The polling aggregates I've seen, the collection of all the polls going into this debate, has Delaney below 2%. And so he's lucky to be on that stage, let alone get all that questioning. And that really ties into my view that they were trying to craft this narrative that the center position of the Democratic Party is with someone like Delaney, or someone like Hickenlooper, or someone like Bullock, when in no way is that the case. These figures are representing a style of Democratic politics which has failed and will continue to fail, and it represents a style of Democratic politics that's quickly old-fashioned and that isn't responding to the social and economic and political crisis of our time. And it was a real shame, I have to be honest, that Delaney was given the image of being an actual candidate for this contest. Another factor that I think needs to be talked about is that, some other candidates had decent performances. Pete Buttigieg, whatever you think of him aside, performed quite well, like from a technical perspective. He's a very gifted speaker. He knows his points. He makes them effectively. I've noted this before, but I think Buttigieg, even if I disagree with his brand of politics, I think he's 100% right that the Democrats should not define this debate by how Republicans will define the Democratic Party. He's right in saying that whether it's a moderate or a progressive that ends up being the nominee, that person will be called a scary socialist by Donald Trump and by the Republicans and by, right-wing forces in society. And he's 100% right in saying that the only thing at play right now should be what are we trying to do in terms of vision building and mobilization going into the election. He's 100% right. I think that it's important we see young people in the race. Being a millennial person in this contest is, I think, very important. And, again, despite all my issues with Buttigieg, I think he was a decent performer. And Marianne Williamson, I have to say, a lot of people make fun of her. She's got some kooky views. She's got some weird way of expressing herself. But if I'm being honest, she made more contributions on that stage than maybe anybody except for Sanders and Warren and maybe Buttigieg. In terms of the actual meaningful things she said, she had a lot of them. She made some great points. I don't agree with her position on Medicare, but she made some great points about reparations. She made some great points about tuition. She made some great points about environmental injustice. There's a whole bunch of factors there that I think she deserves some credit for. She's not going to win this contest, but it's sort of telling that her and Delaney polling similarly, she got quite a bit less screen time, quite a bit less, at least from my perspective, from what I saw. But what I can tell you is she made a greater use of that time. And somebody who was very invisible tonight was Beto ORourke. If everybody remembers, a few months back, people thought that Beto would quickly emerge as one of the elite challengers, being right up there with Sanders and Biden and Harris and Warren. And so far, he's clearly in that solid second tier with Buttigieg. But there's been no breakthrough for Beto ORourke. And tonight, he was very invisible. He made a couple good points. Again, he made a good point talking about the need for reparations. He's well-spoken, but he was really invisible. I don't know if it was because CNN wasn't going to him with questions or if it because he never felt that he had the ability to insert himself effectively into the discussions that were happening. That's a key skill in a debate with 10 people, but he was just very ineffective tonight. And so in general, that's my take. I just want to say that I don't like how CNN, framed this. I want to go back to that. A lot of the questions were framed in such a manner that were designed to attack Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, or in general to sort of feed into a Republican narrative. That, tell me why Bernie Sanders' plan won't work. Or aren't people right that this will take away health insurance from 150 million Americans? The framing was very, very much something a moderate Republican might say. And I don't think in that sense the debate was structured in a way that actually gave progressive voices, a strong footing to work off of. And nonetheless, the progressives held their own. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Marianne Williamson, they all did very good jobs. And I think that they need to be commended for that. Looking forward to tomorrow night, I think what you have to see is that the Harris-Biden matchup is going to be very important. Again, they're the two frontrunners on that side. And unlike this debate, which had, in addition to frontrunners Sanders and Warren, it had relative, frontrunners, second-tier candidates like Buttigieg and ORourke. In this race tomorrow night, there is a much bigger gap between Biden and Harris on the one hand and the rest of the candidates on the other. There could be greater focus on those two candidates. And as we recall, whether Harris was being sincere or not in attacking Joe Biden on his busing policy, she landed a very heavy blow on him. And the pollsters saw that blow reverberate, in the days after that debate. If Harris can again land some more blows on Joe Biden, it could make this race a lot more interesting and shrink Biden's lead, bringing him, more close to Bernie Sanders. I think tomorrow night it'll be very interesting because tonight the narrative was very much there's no Joe Biden in the race, so let's elevate Delaney to be one of these people that's going to be, like the stand-in for the key center-right candidate, like Joe Biden. Tomorrow night, there's no major left-wing candidates running. There's Tulsi Gabbard, but she's sort of, a lower-tier candidate. And I think that it'll be interesting to see if she gets elevated and gets more questions to be a counterpoint to Biden. Something tells me that that won't happen because I don't think CNN wants to actually give real space to left-wing voices if they can avoid it. So this could be a very different theme of debate. You're going to see some similar questions, but I think that without a left-leaning candidate, a major one like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, this is going to be a much more center-right debate in terms of its theme and its structure and its tone. And so I'm going to be a lot less interested in terms of, if I hear something that I really am inspired by, but the debate will be still very interesting from a spectator perspective. And, there'll probably be a lot more to criticize because there won't be a couple good candidates, making good points. It'll just be a sea of bad with maybe the occasional good point from someone like Tulsi Gabbard. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, please launch them down in the comment section. I'll be sure to read them all and respond when I can. And I'll see you in the next video.